Welcome to the Hindu Daily.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so today's deep dive is going to take you straight into the editorial section, and we're really exploring how policies, borders, and even environmental boundaries are just drastically shifting across the country right now.
Right. There's a lot of movement happening on multiple fronts.
There really is, and we are starting with a massive structural shift happening in higher education. This is through the Viksit Shiksha Adhisthan bill.
Yeah, the VBSA bill.
Exactly, the VBSA, which is currently under review by a joint parliamentary committee. And it is basically setting up this huge battle over who actually gets to dictate what you learn in a university.
It's a profound piece of legislation, honestly, because, its stated goal is to statutorily implement the National Education Policy, the NEP 2020. But the actual mechanics of how this bill achieves that goal, well, they're drawing severe criticism from multiple corners. It fundamentally alters the balance of power between the union government and individual states when it comes to, actually running these universities.
Yeah, and the core critique we are seeing in the source material is that this bill is basically a massive constitutional overreach. So I'm looking at this and thinking, is this essentially like a corporate headquarters completely defunding and stripping the autonomy of its regional branches?
That is actually a really good way to picture it.
Because, education is on the concurrent list, right?
Yeah.
So how does the union government justify taking this much control?
Well, yeah, the concurrent list means both the center and the states have the power to make laws regarding education. It's supposed to be shared.
A partnership, essentially.
Exactly. But constitutionally speaking, the union government is relying on a specific provision, Entry 66 of the union list.
Okay, Entry 66.
Right. But the catch here is that Entry 66 only gives Parliament very limited power for the, quote, coordination and determination of standards in higher education.
So just making sure degrees are equal across states.
Precisely. It's meant to ensure that an engineering degree in Kerala holds the exact same weight as one in Punjab. It does not give the center, carte blanche to micromanage day-to-day operations.
But this new VBSA bill, it changes that dynamic.
Radically. Under this new bill, that limited standard-setting power is expanded exponentially. It grants sole discretionary power to union government-controlled councils.
Wow.
Yeah, so bureaucrats would effectively usurp the consultative academic role of the UGC, the University Grants Commission.
So the academics get pushed out.
Basically, yeah. We are talking about stripping the autonomy of the governing bodies of even our most prestigious institutions, the IITs, the IMs. Instead of academics deciding research priorities, you'd have administrative appointees pulling the strings.
And the criticisms of this shift get into some very charged territory, which we should just lay out impartially here.
Right.
Opponents of the bill are arguing that it's designed to promote Hindutva ideologies under the guise of Partiya knowledge. And their claim is that this undermines the multicultural character of Indian history and science.
Yeah, that's a major point of contention in the editorial.
And furthermore, there is a financial concern being raised, right? The critics argue that the bill essentially allows the center to withdraw from its obligation to promote public-funded education.
Yes, pushing students toward expensive loans. And the critics also point out a failure to provide legal enforcement for affirmative action for SCs, STs, and OBCs.
So it's a structural and ideological critique, but they do offer alternatives, right? The editorial doesn't just complain.
No, the critics propose some very specific structural alternatives. Instead of this top-down approach that heavily focuses on output-based global rankings, which, let's be honest, often just means counting patents to look good on paper, they suggest creating a higher education grants council.
An NCGC.
Right. And more importantly, they argue for giving 50% weightage to state higher education councils, or SHECs.
Which makes sense because states are the ones actually funding the bulk of local higher education systems anyway.
Exactly. They need a say to ensure regional equity and social justice. A curriculum dictated entirely from New Delhi might just completely ignore local priorities.
Yeah, local climate issues, regional economic development.
Exactly. State councils would be much better equipped for that.
Okay, so we've got the union government consolidating internal institutional power. But if we pivot from that, we see a very different kind of consolidation happening with India's external defense capabilities in the maritime domain.
Oh, yes, the maritime shift.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there was this incredibly cryptic tweet recently from Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, and it just mentioned a single word, Aridaman.
Yeah, that single word was basically all it took to confirm the quiet commissioning of INS Aridaman,
Which is a big deal.
a massive deal. This is the third submarine in the Indian Navy's SSBN program.
And for those who might not know the acronym, SSBN.
It stands for Ship Submersible Ballistic Nuclear. So a nuclear-powered submarine capable of launching nuclear ballistic missiles. It follows the INS Arihant and the INS Arihant. But the Aridaman represents a huge technological leap.
Right, because we are looking at a 7,000-ton vessel here, and the specs are wild. It can reportedly carry up to 24 K-15 Sagarika missiles or up to 8 nuclear-tipped K-4 or K-5 missiles.
Yeah, which is a big step up. The older submarines in this series could only carry about half that payload.
But here's where I get caught up on the strategy. Why is sea-based deterrence suddenly the absolute priority? I mean, we have land silos, we have fighter jets. Why are we pouring billions into submarines right now?
It really comes down to survivability. And, just the changing nature of modern geopolitics. India's nuclear outlook is strictly anchored on a no-first-use policy.
Right. We don't strike first.
Exactly. So if you legally and morally promise never to launch a nuclear strike first, your ability to survive an enemy's first strike and then retaliate your second strike capability has to be foolproof.
It has to survive the initial attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Land silos can be spotted by satellites. Air bases can be bombed in the opening minutes. But a silent, nuclear-powered submarine lurking deep in the ocean for months at a time.
You can't find it.
It is incredibly hard to track. It guarantees retaliation. It is the ultimate trump card.
That makes a lot of sense, and you can see why having that trump card is so necessary when you look at how conflicts are spilling across domains today. Like, look at West Asia. The conflict there centered heavily on the maritime domain, turning the Strait of Hormuz into a global choke point.
Precisely. Wars today do not stay in neat little lanes. Possessing a robust nuclear triad, launching from land, air, and sea, is essential. And then look at the immediate strategic environment in the Indian Ocean.
Right, the Chinese presence.
Yeah, we are seeing a steady influx of Chinese research and survey vessels. These ships use dual-use technologies to map the ocean floor. It is a direct form of intelligence gathering meant to track our submarine movements.
So we have to scale up just to counter that.
Exactly. Expanding the SSBN fleet puts India in an elite club with the US, Russia, China, France, and the UK, and acts as a massive deterrent.
Okay, so we just looked at how India defends its external borders. But shifting our view back inside the country to our Ground Zero segment, the boundary of who actually gets to be a citizen, and specifically a voter, is becoming a massive point of conflict.
It really is a deeply concerning situation on the ground.
Yeah, and this brings us to a deeply personal story in Assam. We are looking at Babur Ali and his 33-year-old son, Muqaddis Ali, in Kachutali.
The human tragedy here is stark. In April, this family was among roughly 350 people protesting outside polling booths because their names had simply vanished from the electoral rolls.
And the irony of this specific case is just staggering, because Muqaddis was actually a former BJP Panchayat candidate.
Yes, in 2018.
Right, so he genuinely believed his political affiliation made his family immune to these government drives against Bengal origin Muslims. Yet, his home was demolished, and his entire family of 15 lost their voting rights.
Except for his youngest son, ironically.
Yeah, except the 20-year-old son, and the only reason he could vote was because he used a different address in an entirely different district. But I have to ask you directly about this. How does the state legally justify erasing voting rights just because of a land dispute? Evicting someone for encroachment is one thing, but stripping their voting rights, those seem completely disconnected.
You're hitting on the exact legal nuance and really the tragedy of this situation. The government says they are clearing 33 acres of tribal land in Kachutali that was illegally encroached upon.
Okay.
And legal experts, like Gauhati High Court advocate Isluzaman Mazumdar, they make a very clear distinction. The government absolutely has the right to evict illegal encroachers from state land.
Sure, it's a civil offense.
Right, but stripping someone of their voting rights, which is tied directly to citizenship, for an unrelated legal offense regarding land, is fundamentally unfair. The conditions for deleting a voter are supposed to be specific: death, permanent migration, or a proven complaint regarding citizenship. Deleting voters merely for occupying the wrong plot of land is, frankly, highly irregular.
Now, to impartially report the politics here, Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has publicly stated his goal is to, quote, break the backbone of Mias politically. That is his stated objective.
Yes, that is the official rhetoric.
But on the other side, the residents are terrified. They see this deleted voter status as a direct pipeline to deportation.
And if you look at the historical context of Assam, their fear is completely rational. These residents didn't just appear. They bought this land in the 80s after the Brahmaputra River literally washed away their original village.
Oh, wow. So they were climate refugees, essentially.
Essentially, yes. And this current situation directly echoes the legacy of the 1997 D-voter, or doubtful voter scare, where hundreds of thousands suddenly lost their voting rights. So for the families sleeping under tarps today, becoming a deleted voter feels like the first step to a detention camp.
It's a heavy situation. But while citizens in Assam are feeling displaced by the state in Chhattisgarh, we're seeing an entirely different kind of displacement in our Spotlight segment. We're looking at the systemic collapse of the Maoist insurgency.
The end of the Red Corridor. The scale of this collapse is unprecedented. Since early 2024, nearly 2,800 Maoist rebels have surrendered in Chhattisgarh.
That is a staggering number. And the human element here really breaks down the mythology of the insurgency, like the story of Guri Kudiyam. She joined the Maoists at 16, not for Marxist ideology, but literally because she liked their traveling dance troupes.
Yeah, she was just a teenager.
Right. And she surrendered in January after her husband was killed in combat, and now she's learning to sew in a government factory. It's wild. It feels almost like a massive corporate collapse, you know. The CEO is taken out, the mid-level managers realize the ship is sinking and surrender, and the foot soldiers are taking government buyouts.
That is exactly what is happening. The CEO was the top leader, Nambala Keshav Rao, also known as Basavaraju, and he was killed in May.
And that was the turning point.
It was a huge game changer. The Maoist communication network relied entirely on a complex human courier system, not cell phones. When he died, the central node disappeared. So senior commanders, guys like Papa Rao with huge bounties on their heads, they didn't surrender out of a change of heart. They surrendered because they were completely cut off and trapped.
So what does this all mean for the government's actual strategy on the ground? We hear a lot about roads and towers.
The aggressive dual strategy is finally working. They pushed massive infrastructure, over 17,000 kilometers of roads, mobile towers, PDS shops, into formerly inaccessible villages like Kachutali.
Right, erasing the geography of hiding.
Exactly. You combine that loss of cover with a highly lucrative surrender scheme.
Yeah.
We are talking 50,000 to a lakh in rupees, plus cash bonuses for weapons. The incentive to fight just vanishes.
But there is a nuanced internal friction here too, right? The police ranks are feeling some serious resentment.
Oh, profound resentment. You have officers who lost limbs to IEDs planted by these exact insurgents. And now they're watching the people who blew off their legs being, in their words, pampered with government subsidies and cafe jobs in Jagdalpur.
That has to be incredibly tough to swallow.
It is. It highlights the incredibly complex reality of post-conflict rehabilitation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We just talked about the government aggressively pushing modern infrastructure like mobile towers and roads into the deep forests. But in Andhra Pradesh, there is a community that is actively rejecting all of it.
Yeah, they're going in the exact opposite direction.
Right. I'm talking about Gramam. It's a 60-acre Vedic village in Kollam with 17 families living without electricity, without LPG, no mobiles, no internet.
It is a radical social experiment. They live in mud and wood houses relying on castor oil lanterns.
Which is wild. You've got B.Tech graduates and former IT workers abandoning their careers to wake up at 3:30 a.m. to mud houses and lanterns. What is the psychological draw here for modern, highly educated people?
Well, it is a profound rejection of the modern rat race. They follow a philosophy where work is only for sustaining life, not for building assets. They genuinely view the endless accumulation of wealth as the root cause of modern anxiety.
And their daily routine reflects that. I mean, it is strict, waking up at 3:30 a.m., and breakfast is literally fermented rice and buttermilk.
Yes, and they stop all solid food by 4 p.m. It's highly disciplined.
But the part that caught my eye was how they raise their kids. It's a strict curriculum education where kids stop formal academic schooling at 14.
Right, to learn life skills like carpentry and weaving. They don't view children as money-making machines being prepped for corporate jobs. They want them to survive independently.
And the sheer isolation of this place, the residents are completely unaware of massive global and national events.
Totally insulated. No news of the West Asia crisis. No idea about the World Cup.
They just don't know, and they don't want to know.
Exactly. They're finding ultimate peace in a noise-free, plastic-free environment. They see the outside world as full of stress and chronic health issues, and they believe this stripped-down simplicity is the cure.
Well, while the humans in Kurma voluntarily retreated to a peaceful, green life, our final spotlight story looks at wildlife in Kerala that is being violently forced out of theirs.
Yeah, this is a very different kind of displacement.
Right, it's a terrifying picture in Alayaman in Kollam. We are reading reports of kids basically under house arrest. There's a milk boy who had to drop his cans and flee from massive Gaur's Indian bisons roaming residential streets, and elephants are raiding layamams, which are the local labor colonies.
The panic on the ground is just palpable.
It's as if someone locked the doors to your local grocery store and turned up the heat to 120 degrees. You'd have no choice but to break into your neighbor's kitchen to survive.
That's exactly what is happening scientifically. It's not just the heat. It's severe ecosystem fragmentation. Climate change is fundamentally altering monsoon cycles and drying up the deep forest watering pools. The wildlife has no water.
But there's also a tragic botanical detail here, the Rakshasa Kona.
Yes, the senatrees.
Mm.
These are highly invasive plants rapidly taking over the Aryankavu range. They are creating what forest guards call a green desert.
A green desert.
Because the vegetation is lush and green, but it is completely inedible to the local wildlife. So they are starving while surrounded by leaves.
So why aren't the government's defenses working? We hear about fences and trenches all the time.
It is a total failure of human engineering against nature's adaptability. The solar fences they install, they short-circuit constantly because the vegetation grows so fast and grounds the current.
Oh, wow.
And elephants are smart. They literally use dry wood, which doesn't conduct electricity, to bypass or smash the live wires.
They use tools.
Exactly. And the elephant-proof trenches, the EPTs, they just fill up with monsoon silt and become convenient mud ramps. Without restoring the deep forest microclimates, this human-wildlife siege is only going to escalate.
It's a bleak picture.
It really is. And, if we look at all the stories we've unpacked today, I'd leave you with this final provocative thought. We spend so much time building fences, trenches, and legal boundaries to keep the other out. Whether it's wildlife in Kerala, insurgents in Chhattisgarh, or migrants in Assam.
Right.
But as climate change and societal shifts accelerate, we really have to ask, are we actually protecting our habitats, or are we just trapping ourselves inside our own shrinking borders?
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.